first element to make, or the first point to make, is that inflation remains below the midpoint of our target range. And you are familiar with our target range. It is 5 plus or minus 2.5%. And actually in June, the most recent number was June, and the inflation that was recorded then was 4.3%. And we expect today to see the new released number. We still haven't seen it, of course. It will be released hopefully later this morning or early this afternoon. And we'll see what the answer is then. But the point again is we expect it to be around where the June number was. Because expectations, inflation expectations are well anchored. Food inflation has been falling. Actually, food prices have been falling. And fear inflation has been rising at a decreasing rate. I think some time ago, actually the last two meetings, we have mentioned that the price of oil, international price of oil, the global prices have been rising gradually in line with, say, developments in the political developments in some of the producing nations and so forth. So our price inflation has kept up with that, or rather fuel inflation has risen as well, but also because of domestic things related to charcoal prices, meaning logging, the ban on logging and so forth, as you know, a few months ago. Nevertheless, non-food inflation has been falling. Rather, non-food, non-fuel remains low, and the 3-month annualized rates have been falling. So it confirms a favorable position with regard to inflation. Now, we should also add that, yes, the minister announced, the cabinet secretary, when he read the budget speech in June, he announced an increase, or we expect an increase in excise taxes. Now, I'm not sure if those were announced then, but they're indexed, so they are expected to move. The impact of increase in excise taxes due to the indexation. And we expect that would contribute something like 0.37 percentage points to inflation going forward. So 0.37 percentage points. So what about on the output side? The most recent numbers actually are the Q1 data, actual data, and this showed a growth rate of 5.7%, largely supported by a strong recovery in agriculture and resilience of the services sector. What is clear is that there is a very strong positive sentiment that has been sustained. We talked about it the last 3 meetings actually, and I think this has been confirmed first by the market perception survey, which shows the optimism has been sustained. Also, in particular, we see significant optimism in a few key sectors: manufacturing, tourism, and transportation. All these respondents in these sectors showed significant increases in, or expectation of large increases in growth, also due to favorable sentiments or very favorable outcomes in their sectors. Now, on the whole, respondents, talking about optimism, respondents tied this to a rebound in agriculture, completion of key infrastructure projects, focus on the Big Four agenda, very strong forward bookings in hotels, and among others also stable macroeconomic environment. All those have led the respondents, indeed consumers and investors, to have a very favorable outlook in the prospects of the economy. At the same time, we know we are connected with other countries, other economies, and currently we are seeing a very favorable global economic outlook. So the world economy seems to be in a good place. This, however, there are also risks that the global economy is running, as we know. And those risks are significant, but they haven't yet materialized. So, for instance, the issue of the trade wars. Now, it's true the trade wars have started, but you could say that they are still in round one of the trade war. And we hope that the war will cease quickly, because there won't be any winners in trade wars. Everybody loses. In the short run, it appears that people will win, but in the long run, we know that everybody loses from a trade war. That being the case, that is a significant risk. There are also other risks in terms of the unwinding of the timing of the unwinding of the UMPs, the unconventional monetary policy, i.e. the hiking of interest rates in the advanced economies and things like that. Nevertheless, we have very good outcomes. Global growth is expected to be around 3.9% in 2018 and 2019, and it is the first time would have such numbers in a long time. As an aside, a few days ago, the Secretary of Treasury, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury, was quoted as saying that, talking quite favorably about the economy. This is on the back of very recent outcomes that were, or announcements of data. And he was talking of, this may continue for another 3 or 4 years. This sort of favorable, well, that is him speaking and being reported. Okay, so what we expect for 2018. 2018, we have recalculated our projections, and we have come up with a number expecting us to grow by 6.2% in 2018. This is confirming, or rather this is using all the recent data, including the Q1 data, and also using the information, all the information we have in terms of the global economy and indeed other developments in the domestically. I want to say a couple of things about the external sector. We've noted that agricultural exports have been quite resilient. Their performance have been quite strong. And in particular, tea, horticultural exports, these are fresh vegetables, fruits and nuts and cut flowers. All those have been growing quite strongly. It is true the tea prices have been worse than last year, but the volumes have been much better because of the favorable weather. I also mentioned the oil prices, the international oil prices, and that those will tend to, I expected to increase. They are high relative to last year, but also they expected to move up marginally. But that being the case, we have also seen lower food imports post the imports that we had last year, drought imports, if you remember. And also SGI imports are more muted. I thought that this had to do with the timing of the projects and things like that, until somebody mentioned that actually we expect imports to be less broadly. I'm talking of compared to the past, because such things like the rolling stock, you're not going to import more rolling stock, locomotives and things like that. It's the same locomotives that will be running up and down the SGR. Well, maybe just the short SGR to Nairobi or the longer SGR to Nakuru or wherever else it's going to terminate. So on the whole, the higher prices, higher oil prices have been more than offset by the lower food prices and indeed SGR food imports and also imports of SGR equipment. Remittances have also been very good, very strong. And actually, these are from 1 month to the next. They've just gone from one record to another. And we ask ourselves, why is